The front side of this kameez is relatively easy. What we've done is added an extension, laced it over on top, and then centered this and made the patti, attached the underside on, and then just turned it over, pressed it and attached it into the central position, and then attached the neckline on, pressed that and finished it off. We're going to do the back, which is generally done on like a invisible seam. So right sides we're going to stitch together first, the right side facing up with the fabric being attached to this, just a straightforward seam. Now do this seam fairly deep. One thing to bear in mind with linen is if you put this in a wash, especially if you put it on a high temperature, what tends to happen is it tends to fray and come out from the stitching. So I would recommend a sort of a fairly deep stitching. The length of this is adequate anyway. So what we're going to do is just do both the right sides facing together, a deep stitching, and once this deep stitching is done, what you're doing is you're taking that, you're turning it around, and you'll be doing a seam on the inside. So the way to do that is take the right side, the edge of the other fabric, just twist it around and start attaching. So what was going to happen is all of this fabric, which is the daman, which is the gear of the kameez, is going to start getting trapped inside, and it's almost going to resemble like a snake-like shape. Now what you're doing is you're seaming this secondary seam just below the first seam. So you can either do it exactly on the seam or you can do it on the inside of the seam. I always recommend doing it on the inside of the seam, because what that will do is it will reinforce your initial stitching and giving you a sort of like a double stitching. So as you're going along, you're trapping this inside, and it's becoming like a snake-like. Now you can do this with a sort of like an average, and if the weight of the kameez is not so much. If it's a heavy fabric, then it becomes difficult, and also if your trimming end is small, then it also can become difficult. So once this snake-like is all assembled, what you're doing then is slowly you're releasing it and turning this onto the right side, and that will give you an invisible daman attaching, where the seams of this are on the inside of the fabric. Once it's done, you press it to size. The inside of the stitching is a little bit below, the outside is perfectly fine. This is the right side, which is what we're sort of concerned with, and once this is finished off with pressing, it actually will stabilize.